was from Sarah J.
Okay.
She said, please bring back physical. Oh, yeah, we talked about this. Physical climate control knob. I don't want to navigate 3 sub menus just to turn on my seat heater.
Oh my gosh. Hey, Sarah J, louder for people in the back.
Thank you,
I think we find ourselves in pretty unanimous agreement on that.
Get ready for a dynamic episode of Features Talk.
Welcome, LinkedIn fam, to the Features Talk podcast.
Woo.
Yes, we are coming to you guys today with a special holiday edition of the Features Talk. The holidays are my favorite time of the year. I feel like a little kid when Christmas and New Year's and Thanksgiving comes around. So I am so excited today to be coming to you guys with a fun holiday edition episode. And of course, I am your host, Lisa Bailey. And joining me, as always, is our product specialist and my co-host, Luke Verseput. Welcome back, Luke.
Hello. Tis the season to talk more about features.
It's the season.
has always been the season.
Yes, and
but now we're just doing so in our special apparel.
I know. I was getting ready to say I love your hat, Luke.
Oh, thank you. I had to fit the headphones around it, but it worked.
Well, you know what? Today we are taking a page out of A Christmas Carol, which is pretty popular. Everybody knows that movie. And
it's actually one of my favorite stories.
It is, really. I love that. But instead of Scrooge, okay, we're visiting the ghosts of features, past, present, and future, right? Mm-hmm. So just like holiday traditions evolve, the way that we have driven over the past, the present, and the future has changed, evolved, and is still changing. And so we thought it would be super cool to have a holiday edition where we focus on, the past of the features, that nostalgic look at some of the things that we might miss that was once in vehicles before in features. And then we can take a look at the present where we've got the whole reality of ADAS now and trusting tech and collaborating with it and co-piloting with it, right? And then we've got the future, which we're going to do a sneak peek into some sci-fi tech coming in 2026 and beyond. So I am excited to get started, Luke.
Hey, we call it sci-fi now, but
I know
we call it sci-fi now, but the idea of a car having a screen at all was sci-fi at one point.
Exactly. I 100% agree. I'm still being blown away by the stuff I'm seeing happening in our cars, in our vehicles. I don't even know if we can call them anymore soon. If we can call them a car, we might as well just call them a computer.
Yeah, pretty much.
And so thinking about, let's start with the ghosts of the features past. So thinking about Luke, that analog era, the manual labor era, okay, the arm workout with raising the windows and that type of thing. Are you fully converted to the push button life, or is there any part that misses some of that analog struggle?
Yeah, if it's from that really just pure analog era, I have to say I'm pretty much entirely converted, I would say, and I think most normal consumers are nowadays. The question of what we think of as analog controls versus digital controls. Now that's going to be coming up, later. But as far as really back then, I'm thinking back and I actually, my first ever car was a 1989 Chevrolet Blazer. And I was born in 92. So that car was, even older than me, and it belonged to my grandpa. And it was, it had crank windows. It had purely manual locks. So if you want to lock the passenger side, you reach over and
that's right.
Push the lock on the door, and it was only a 2-door car, so it wasn't a hard thing to do. But and it also had 2 keys.
Yeah,
it came with 2 keys. One key was for the doors and the trunk, and then a separate key entirely was for the ignition that you had to turn. And cars from the 70s and 80s, yeah, it was very common for them to come with two different keys.
I didn't know
Um,
that. Hmm.
and prior to that, actually, in 60s and before, it was actually more common that cars had three keys. One would be for the doors, a separate one would be for the trunk or the tailgate, and then a third one would be for the engine, or for the ignition start. So that was very common back then, and of course, it seems crazy nowadays. Like really more than one key, just
Exactly.
more stuff to have on my key ring. And with
Exactly.
with most cars, even like mine, I don't have anything near what could be considered a high end car, but I can start it from my phone. And
Yeah.
so, and if someone says, all right, you're going to go from that to having three different keys and a turn ignition, I would think, I'll pass. I think I'll pass. I'm okay with my power locks and power windows.
Yes.
And so I think most people, and I would mostly include myself in this, I think I'm pretty well set on not needing things like that. And it's always I find a lot of interest in looking back and seeing just how different things were back then. And everyone knows about the whole crank window thing, right?
Yep.
Even like very young kids, like even at our time of recording at the end of 2025, like even very young people, like young kids who can't drive, like even they have a vague awareness of like, oh, cars used to have crank windows.
Oh yeah.
Like it's still people kind of know about that. Or cars used to have, if I hate to say cars used to, but it's true, like they used to have CD players, and before that cassette players and so on.
Oh yes.
And it's like people have awareness of that, but I really love seeing how some pretty wild decisions were made back then.
Mhm.
Like when was the last time if you go to any random person and say, where are the high beams on your car? Where do you think they'll look? I think they'll look in one of two places. They'll look
Where?
either usually on the little stalk coming off the left
Yep.
of the steering wheel, or on some cars they might look behind the steering wheel on the dashboard, like a little
Mhm.
area to the left of the dashboard. Very common. Some cars have like a little dial. Maybe you turn the lights, which they have automatic headlights, but then there might be high beams over there.
Yeah.
Cars from 30, 40 years ago often had the high beam switch on the floor where your
On
left
the
foot
floor.
would go. Yeah. And so of course most cars were manual transmissions back then, and so you'd have a clutch pedal, of course, gas, brake, and clutch. But then to the left of that, where on most cars now, whether it's automatic or manual with a clutch pedal, you have
Yeah.
what's called the dead pedal, which is basically just that little kind of slanted surface for you to rest your left foot on.
Yeah.
Um, well, they still had one of those, but there was a little switch down there. There was a little button you could press with your foot, and that turned on your high beams.
Okay, so I have a question. Because I'm just thinking, when are they turning on the high beams, having to drive and reach down to push that button? Are they turning it on before they
Well,
start driving?
Well, you don't reach down, you press it with your foot. It's a foot
Oh, you
switch.
press it with your foot. Okay, okay, okay. I got it. I got it. I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's mounted on the floor. It's
Oh,
mounted on
wow.
the floor by the pedal. And it's so no,
Oh,
you don't reach down. It would be almost unreachable to reach down and do it with your hand. No, you'd have to press it with your foot.
that is first of all, that's new news to me.
Yeah, isn't
And
that wild?
that is completely wild. And talk about like the fact that we already have to split our brain looking in our blind spots, looking in the side view mirrors, in the rear view mirror. It seems like before cars got a little bit more tech, we had to do a lot. I mean,
Mhm.
to put your foot down there to turn on the high beams, you probably have to press it to turn it off. I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's a toggle on off switch. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just thinking that's some, it sounds silly. That's manual labor, but that's some manual labor. Now that we're in the tech era, I don't know if I would want that back.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'd be okay. And I mean, also aside from just uh, I mean, yeah, you could say, oh, it's more like physical work, but like I'm sure it's not a hard switch to press. I don't think it's a physically
Yeah,
strenuous thing to do.
yeah.
Like it won't exhaust you while you're driving, but it's just you
You gotta
know,
think about it.
we've learned to do better. Just I think of it more. I think of it less in terms of like, oh, how much like physical work is it to do. I think
Mhm.
of it more just in terms of user interface. And
Yes,
it's just not. It doesn't. At least nowadays, we don't think of it as intuitive user interface.
100%. And that's probably the perfect word you could say. Intuitive user interface. And that's really what's driving all of the features we see right now is that intuitive user interface. What is that natural body language of us behind the wheel? So that makes complete sense. That's new news to me. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm glad we don't have that going on anymore.
Hmm. Yeah,
I'm glad.
exactly.
But I do. You mentioned something that I miss. I miss the CDs.
Oh
I
yeah,
miss having CDs in my car. Because yeah, you have to take the CD in and out, but I had a whole collection of CDs that now they're pretty much extinct at this point. No one's selling CD players anymore. They're not in the cars, and
yeah.
so I missed that. I mean, that was almost like a nostalgic thing for me. Was bringing my book of CDs with me, and whatever vibe I was in, I could put it
Mhm.
in, take it out, switch it, that kind of thing. So I do miss that. I don't miss rolling up the windows. I'm gonna just
Yeah,
go ahead and lay it right there for you. I'm okay with pressing the button.
yeah,
I am okay with pressing the button. Not that it's like strenuous, but I mean, when you get into a hot car, you don't
yeah.
want
Oh
to
gosh,
wait
yeah.
2 minutes so that you can roll your window down. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, we need those windows down right now.
Yeah, and it might not be strenuous for to roll your own down your own window, but what happens if you have to roll up or down the passenger window?
Exactly. Here you are leaning over in the car.
Or if a back window, if a back roll up or down crank window was up or down, up guess you're getting out of the car. Now then we can start talking about it being strenuous work compared to a button.
Yes, well, you pretty much got all 4 doors open. This is what I did. All 4 doors open, and I'm going to one door at a time, letting the windows down, and then I'm getting in the car. Talk about some work. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, that's no, I don't want that back. I definitely don't want that back. I did see something that I feel like I know about, but maybe I don't. Maybe I just didn't know it was called vent windows.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yes, yeah, vent windows. Those were common on those are common on a lot of cars, and especially like especially trucks and SUVs and vans, like early minivans.
Yeah.
Um and it was basically that little tiny, it's sometimes called a quarter window,
Mhm.
where the where the roof is slopes down, it's the windshield, but it's basically like the last bit of where the door slopes down to meet where the dashboard is, and there's
Yeah.
a little window there, and those windows could just pivot. You could just
Oh.
pivot it open. And so it would kind of it would just be a way to redirect air to basically come more or less straight in on you without coming actually straight in on you like through the windshield.
Right.
Um, but it was now windows could still be rolled down, right? You would still have crank windows. You could still roll down the window for like the big open, for a
Yeah.
big slab of openness next to you. But then there was this little crank window or this little vent window which would just pivot sideways. And the reason for that pivot is that could actually be kind of be directed in a
Mm,
way. When we
okay.
move, yeah, when we move climate vents, like when you're sitting or seat, when you move climate vents, like where the AC is blowing, you're moving those little bars, and the little bars are just physically directing where the air is blowing. So
Yeah.
vent windows were basically that. Now, of course, it was just pulling in outside air. It
Right.
wasn't, it wasn't air conditioned. It was so if it's hot air outside, you're letting hot air in. If it's cold outside, you're letting cold air in.
Right.
And like also, if you're driving along and there's like a semi truck in front of you and it lets out a big thing of exhaust
Oh,
from the
yeah.
stacks and your vent
There's no
windows open, guess what's
filter.
coming in the car? Then
Yeah, there's no filter.
mhm.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah.
But you know
Yeah.
what that but you know what the other thing about that was? It was small enough because the windows were only it's hard to see on camera for scale, but like the windows were only maybe less than a foot tall, and they weren't very wide. And so it was a small enough window that it could be opened on one side and the other person wouldn't feel it. Because
Oh,
because if
okay.
because if you're driving along and you have an entire window open, that's a lot of air coming in. Like you'll
Right.
feel that from the other side of the car. But a vent window was kind of, I guess you could think of it as the OG, like original dual zone climate control, which is that you could which is that you kind of air coming in from one side, but not on the other side.
Right. That makes sense. That makes sense. That's interesting to me. Yeah, the evolution of features. I mean, my God, just to think about where we are today, we have come a long way. I mean,
Mhm.
we have come a long way. I know one of the features that I do think that my grandpa had a truck that had the bench seats in the front, which I did love
Oh yeah.
way back in the day. But I can remember watching movies, especially like the older movies that would show the drive up movie dates that you can go to, and the screen is you're outside and you're in your truck, and you and your significant other are, there's nothing in between you, separating you, not these
Yep.
hard seat belt, or
Right.
anything stopping you, from getting to them.
And you set the radio to whatever channel it's broadcasting the audio from.
Yes. Yes. So I definitely actually I wouldn't mind that coming back. Bench seats in some cars. Obviously the design would have to make sense, but I think that was very, for romantic purposes. And it's convenient.
There's certain things about that front bench seats,
Yeah.
like a true just bench seat where three across seating,
Mhm.
in the front row has not been completely left behind. There are still some like usually work trucks, frankly,
Yeah.
work trucks and some SUVs that have three across front seating. In fact, the new Land Rover Defender,
Mm.
which the current version of the Land Rover Defender came out in 2020, I believe. Um, and you could get it with a front bench seat. You could get it with three across seating.
Oh, cool.
Um, Now it wasn't a true connected bench where you would pull the whole thing out. It was actually technically three separate seats, but they were so close to each other that they were basically like this.
Okay.
They were literally like touching each other. So it was effectively bench what we would consider bench seating, even though it was technically three separate seats.
Yeah.
But anyway, um, those that has become much less common, and the main reason why bench seats are kind of a ghost of features past is because if you do front bench seating, you're cutting out an entire center console with cup holders and
Yep.
a wireless phone charger and USB ports
Yep.
and the room for a bigger screen,
Mhm.
and all these things that quite obviously consumers have shown they highly prioritize in their vehicles.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
Now there's a place for it with with work trucks, with people who need to put equipment next to them.
Right.
Um, and or sometimes you have like a crew that you only need to carry three people for a job, but you need
Mhm.
as much of the back of a truck as possible to just hold the stuff they need for the job. So you do three across seating for a team of three, and then you have an entire just cargo area behind you. That's pretty common for that. But again, that's not what normal consumers just use in their day to day. We prioritize the newer features that we've gotten, things like USB ports, wireless chargers, having cup holders readily accessible right there, and the center console, right, little lid you can open up.
Yep.
Um,
Your junk in there that you don't need, that you
yeah,
shouldn't be putting in there.
exactly. There is one thing about bench seats um, that absolutely has changed and has honestly, I would say, no place in the modern era now that we have come to know better. Consider how many bench seats, front and back, did not have headrests.
Yes. Oh,
Now,
yeah. Oh, yeah. They weren't even designed for that. Did they have seat belts?
well, I mean, way back, I mean, like in like the 50s and
Of course
before
they
cars did,
didn't.
in like
Yeah.
the 50s and before cars didn't have seatbelts. I mean, that's going way back.
Okay.
But no, there was but seatbelts came around way before headrests did.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
like like you know, like
Yeah.
the seat coming up high enough to you know
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
And fun fact, by the way, I've mentioned this on previous episodes. That thing that everyone calls headrests, I call it headrests. I mean, everyone does because everyone
Mhm.
just knows that you mean this. They
Right.
are not actually called headrests, they're called neck restraints.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because yeah, it might be all nice and comfortable to, sit at the drive-in theater with your significant other or sit there and you'll look up at, the stars in the night sky or
Uh-huh.
something. But the moment you're stopped at a red light or a stop sign and someone behind you is not paying attention and they rear end your car and
Yeah.
it snaps your head back, and there's nothing to stop you. That's why it's called a neck restraint.
Talk
And
about damage to your neck
yeah,
in a small
yeah,
back fender accident.
yeah. Now a small one would be something that you could make it out of, but if it's a severe one, then if it's a really severe hit from behind, then the first if is if you make it out alive. Then if you do, it would likely be irreparable damage.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
and so bench seats back then often had no headrest or neck restraints, and that obviously is something where that's something I don't think should be missed at all, because it was such an unsafe thing to do. It was very, very common for cars. This was usually in the 70s. It was already by like the 70s or so, the
Mhm.
70s, and certainly by the 80s, that neck restraints, headrests were fairly common, but only for the front row. It was only for the front row. Usually the back row had a one connected bench seat with no headrest. So that's bench seats are kind of a mixed bag. There are some good things about them, but the
Yeah.
whole not having a headrest thing, very, very good that we've moved on from that.
Yeah, it was very interesting when we were getting ready for this episode. You could see some of the features of the past and why they were not in the present, and it was
Oh yeah.
centered around safety. But then you have those features that were in the past that are not in the present, just because of, just like you said, the user interface, the experience, that intuitive, and then we're just living in a connective world right now. So it's requiring us to do different things in our vehicles. So I thought that was very interesting. I know pop-up headlights, we've talked about that in
Oh
our
yeah.
a couple of episodes back about the pop-up headlights. And I thought that was a cool feature. I mean, I remember plenty of movies where those pop-up headlights were used to do all kinds of things.
Yep. Oh
And
man, that
and they were one of the coolest features of the 80s and 90s.
those became really big. The NA Miata,
Mhm.
which is NA is essentially the chassis code for that car, but the NA Miata is the first generation Mazda. Miata famously had pop-up headlights.
Mhm.
The last Chevrolet Corvette to have pop-up headlights was the C4 Corvette. We're currently on C8 Corvette, which is the mid-engine
Mhm.
version of the Corvette. But 4 generations back, the C4 was the last Corvette to have pop-up headlights. And yeah, like everyone connects it with like a 70s, 80s, and kind of into the 90s is where it started to kind
Yeah.
of lose its way. But but want to take a guess when what first year? What was the first car to ever have pop-up headlights? What do you think?
Ooh. Oh my God. Um,
Everyone thinks about it exactly like you said, like 70s, 80s, and some of the 90s. But do you know what the first car ever was that had
I don't
pop-up headlights?
know. I don't know. What
It
was
was
it?
it was the 1936 Cord 810.
1936?
Yep, 1936 was the first time a car had pop-up headlights that
That
actually moved.
is insane.
So by the 70s, when like the 70s, like also very famously the Lamborghini Countach,
Yeah.
um, the Lamborghini Countach, the Lamborghini Diablo that had pop-up headlights. Ferraris also back then. Even so, like even in supercars, it like became this iconic thing. We think of old cars as having pop-up headlights. Pop-up headlights were around for over 40 years by the time those cars were out.
That I didn't know that.
Yep, the car was called the Cord 810, CORD 810. The Cord
That
810 in 1936 was the first pop-up headlight car.
that is insane. I
Oh,
had no idea. I just
talk
remember
talk about
seeing
ghost of
it
features past. That's the real past.
that is the real past. I mean, that's past.
Yeah.
And that's one of the features that also is not in the present because of safety, right?
Yeah, partially safety, and also just because it's more mechanical moving parts
Okay,
that could go bad, and which then that plays into the safety thing. If the
right.
headlights somehow are like fail and they can't be brought up, then
Oh, yes. That's a
then
problem.
you know then suddenly you just can't drive at night. So
Oh,
yeah,
that.
those have kind of gone away. But yeah, it plays into the safety thing.
Yeah, for the pedestrians,
But there's a
that
real cult following. I mean, there's cars that that like in their lifetime, like the Mazda Miata, for example, when it went from pop-up headlights to non-pop-up headlights, um, the pop-up headlight ones are sometimes worth more on the used market. Some so yeah, some people really look for those.
30
Um,
specs.
yep. The original Honda NSX. The original Honda NSX also went from having pop-up headlights to having fixed headlights in its production run.
Oh wow. I did not know that. That is definitely pass. Now, I mean, I think we've done some nice reminiscing on the features of the past. Let's kind of
Mhm.
transition now into the ghost of features present,
Yep, like
okay, which is where we are right
where
now.
we at right now. Mhm.
That's where we're at right now. And I mean, I'm going to ask you a question, and this has been obviously a question that it's literally a war. Matter of fact, actually, I just recently saw, I think it was Volkswagen that talked about this and how they were not going to make this mistake again.
Hmm.
It's the button war. It's the button war.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yes. And my question to you, Luke, is if you were the CEO of a major car brand for just one
Mhm.
day, what is the one function that you would legally mandate must be a physical button again?
Hmm. As meaning like one that has gone away from being a physical button? Um, let's see.
Or maybe it's one that's a physical button, but there has been some iterations where they're trying to think about making it a touch, and you're like, no.
Right. Some features have made that transition gracefully, others absolutely have not.
Mhm.
And Volkswagen is actually kind of an example of that,
Yep.
in a couple ways. But I would say I think the big one for me would probably be a I would say a volume dial
Yes.
that that and I have a reason for this. The a volume dial that can also be pushed in as a media power button.
Yep.
Because we take it for granted, have taken it for granted for decades, like even back in the Ghost of Christmas features past, like cars, for longer than either of us have been alive, have had a dial
Mhm.
that you turn for volume that if you push it, it
Yes.
powers off the system. And
Yes.
I have actually made use of this in each of the cars I've had where um I'm listening to music, which I always listen to music when I drive, like no exception there.
Mhm.
Um, but if I hear an emergency vehicle, if I
Mhm.
hear a siren or something, it's become muscle memory to just reach out and boom, and just push the dial in, and it's an instant mute button of any media that's playing, and
Yeah.
so that you can hear that, or if I hear if I hear a horn something that's like sounds like, oh, might need to listen to that. Um,
Mhm.
I would really value having a dial, some kind of physical volume control that I can just reach out and boom, and like press the button to mute it.
Yep.
And so that would be a thing for me. That I think is what I would do. Now, what happened with Volkswagen, and this happened with the newest version of the Volkswagen Golf.
Mhm.
With the new version of the Volkswagen Golf, they debuted a new infotainment system that did migrate several features that had been physical controls to touch controls.
Yep.
Uh, Volume was one of them, and also they did. It was also digitization of climate controls, so not
Right.
having physical buttons and dials for temperature and so on. And and um and the user reviews and journalist reviews dragged Volkswagen through the mud about
Yes.
this um because it was just not well received. There was enough about it that was just not intuitive.
Yep.
And it looked better. It's great for when you have a professional photographer photographing the interior to for marketing and stuff, because it looks
Right.
like this cool sleek new interface.
Mhm.
But it just in actually using it, it didn't pan out, and so they actually very quickly updated a lot of the vehicles to
Mhm.
kind of return some of the more traditional controls.
Oh yeah, the CEO would put out a statement about that we will not make that mistake again. And for me, I have personally, and I know I've talked about this on the podcast, personally experienced not having physical knobs for the volume and climate control.
Yeah.
Also, the radio station, if I'm listening to the radio. because I do listen to the radio sometimes, and it was very frustrating. I mean, I would never want that in my car, period. Like, no, we need to have a physical button for the volume, for the climate control, and for using the radio, or if you're switching to an app, whatever it is, it needs to be physical.
Basically,
That is,
basically
yeah,
previous track, next track.
yes, yes. It's very important, and there's a war. I mean, there are some people that prefer the touchscreen, and I'm thinking that the people that prefer the touchscreen probably use touchscreen devices all the time. So we're used to using touchscreen on our phones. We're used to, I mean, because we went from having, what was it called? The Sidekick. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but I think it was called like the Sidekick. It was T-Mobile's phone, where, you know, or the BlackBerry, where we were typing, we felt the buttons, we could even hear the buttons, right? And now everything is pretty much touchscreen. Everything is touchscreen. The laptops that you're purchasing now, they are touchscreen along with a keyboard. Some of them you can purchase without a keyboard or a detachable keyboard. So it's like we're in this era of getting away from this physical touch of buttons everywhere, not just in the vehicle, but everywhere. And so it's interesting to see this adoption where you've got this segment of people that don't mind not having buttons, but the majority of people want buttons, from what I can see.
Yeah, my big thing about it is I think it's good to have a balance of the two. And speaking specifically with cars, I think it's good to have a balance of the two. And we do use touchscreen devices all the time.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, using touchscreen devices normally outside of driving does not then automatically make someone feel like they are just want that in cars. Because if I right now like right now in the middle of this, just pulled this down on my touchscreen to see if I just got a new text message, then, you know, I didn't have to do that, but also pay attention to there being a car in front of me.
Right.
So I, you know, if I mistouch something in doing that, and then opening up an app or something that wasn't just a quick physical button, then it's fine. But the nice thing about physical buttons is they're in the same place, the same shape, they never move, and you can feel them.
Exactly.
Or actually, well, I shouldn't say they never move. Part of the thing is they do move, which is that you have a tactile feedback on them. And so I think it's good to have a balance. I'm a big supporter of more and bigger touch screens and just screens in general on cars, because I think because I've seen firsthand with my own car compared to like one of my parents' cars, where we have cars of the same brand, but mine has a slightly bigger screen on it.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, we hear the argument all the time, or at least, you know, people like my age, you know, we hear all the argument all the time of like, oh, it's, you know, oh, we don't want, you know, bigger screens in cars will just be more distracting. Oh, bigger screens in cars will just, you know, it'll make you look away from the road more. And I find it's the opposite. I find the larger screen shows more information at once.
Yep.
And so like the ability to be having like, say, like the navigation map show what your next direction is. So you can, while driving, you can take a quick glance and see, okay, in 0.6 miles, get off at this exit.
Right.
And then while you're looking forward, if you just want to change what track you're listening to, which is right on the steering wheel, so you don't have to look away from it, you can change the track, and at a quick glance, you can see on the other part of this larger screen, it shows what you switched to. And all of which can be done without reaching out and touching the screen and having any extra steps. And so I'm a big supporter of having larger screens in cars that can show more information at the same time, because then you are actually not looking at it as often, because the moment you glance down on it, you know it's going to be there.
Oh yeah.
But however, again, the nuance of that is that when I wanted to make a change, I could do it with my physical thing on the steering wheel. So
exactly.
That's why I say the balance is important.
At 100%. And you can see the design, even in like the Tesla, you know, you've got that big screen right there in front of you. And so the industry is playing around with this, but the button is actually starting to fall into the conversation of safety. And so I know if you think about the disabled that are driving, they need that tactile They need to be able to feel things. They need to be able to turn things. So I believe the Euro NCAP, and that's where there are standards that are created in Europe. They are adopted in America, where we are. So what you see going on in Europe, it will be here. And so they're pushing for physical buttons for safety. So they're pushing for legislation behind it. And so that will be another feature that we can watch and have a conversation about years from now. And it will probably still be here. I don't think buttons will be a feature of the past. In a few years from now, it will not be on the list of features from the past, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Like when we're on Features Talk season, 30 or 40 or something like that, we're not going to look back and see,
Exactly.
oh, remember when we had the buttons for something? Like,
Mhm.
I honestly think, I actually think, I would guess that a fully self-driving car will still have physical buttons in it.
Oh yeah.
I would think a fully not that many, but like I still would actually believe that a fully self-driving car that you can get in and fall asleep in and just guarantee that you will get somewhere safely, like truly just hands off, like you don't even have to pay attention to what you're doing. I will bet that physical buttons will be enough in demand that even a car like that would still maintain a physical button or here and there. And safety wise, that is actually something that's a good point with buttons is, and one thing that's I've seen this start to change in a couple cars, so maybe this is not in writing technically anymore, but it has been for many years that the hazard light button, the emergency flashes button, at least in the US, is mandated to be a physical button that cannot be capacitive touch.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. We were talking about it a second ago when we were talking about the features of the past, the bench seats, right? And you basically eliminating that or bringing that back would mean literally taking away our connectivity hub, right? In the front seat. Our connectivity hub is between those two seats, right? So between the driver's seat and the passenger seat in the middle, we've got all of our connectivity. We have our phone connectivity. We have if you have a device, you can plug that up there. And so
I don't think it would get rid of it because, like I said, the new Defender still has its big center touchscreen and you can get 3 across seating. But what it would do is make it harder to use because if you have 3 across, you're getting in someone's way to reach it. So from a user bringing back a bench seat would absolutely, from a user interface standpoint, that would grind some gears with our connectivity.
100%. And if we're talking about like the features of present, connectivity overload is a thing. We've talked about this already, right? With having too much and the expectation that honestly, I think everybody has an expectation that the car should be an extension of their phone.
Yeah, that's what consumers have demonstrated they value. Whether everyone agrees with that or not, that's what the market for newer cars has demonstrated. This is what we want. And so that's what automakers are pursuing.
Yes, because we're doing everything on our phones. If you look at the data and the statistics, we are on our phones. If you go to
100%.
Establishment, even when you go to get your car fixed, they're no longer calling you back up to the counter to discuss, okay, we went over this, and this. You're getting a text message. This is what's going on with the car. Choose your choices of what you want us to do, and we will text you when the car is done. And of course, at the end, when they give you the receipt, they'll go over it in person. But that whole dynamic of communication is completely changed. And it's the same thing within the car. If we're talking on our phone, we want to be able to get in the car and continue that conversation in the car.
Yeah.
That's what we want. And so
I actually have done that quite a lot. Yeah. In the middle and where you're on a phone call and then thankfully I have a car that does it really well, but you'd say, "Oh, 1 second, I'm just getting in the car." And then about a second and a half later, boom, it's, when the Bluetooth connects, the call is still there and it's just changing its audio source. So,
there's no glitching. God forbid it glitches. We're very upset. When technology fails, we are not happy, which I think is going to be very interesting as cars become even more connected. The idea of what happens when it does fail, because it will fail. We've talked about this multiple times. And so honestly, I think it's a learning curve for all of us to be more patient, because it's less analog and it's more connected. There's chips and computers and things that are working that are outside of your control. But I do know that as far as the research that I've been doing on the future of design, and we'll get there in a second, Android, the CarPlay, so Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, some of the manufacturers, they're moving away from that. They won't even have that available in cars. They're moving towards a little bit of a different experience, which I think is going to be very interesting, because people that have iPhones, I mean, they're used to having Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, some already have, and the big one, actually a lot of people have brought this up to me, and the big one for that right now is General Motors. General Motors has actually on a lot of their vehicles actually stopped offering Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and now what they integrate with their system from the factory is Google. So they have Google Maps is already built in. Google, what used to be Google Assistant, which is now called Google Gemini, the kind of the AI assistant. All that's integrated in the car, which is all well and good. That's a good system to use. I mean, I say that as a longtime Android user. I'm on Samsung phone, maybe number 6 or 7 now over the years. Like I've had them going way back, and so I've always found it to be a really great system. And so I think having Google functionality built into a car is not a bad thing. But I actually honestly have yet to talk to someone who doesn't think it's a bad idea. I pretty much I've even talked to some people who have newer General Motors vehicles, and they actually wish they had Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, which they probably had on a previous car. So that move has already happened, at least with General Motors, and it's, from what I've seen, at least from talking to a lot of people about it, it has not been particularly well received.
Yeah, it's a whole shift. I mean, that's a shift. I mean, not everybody uses Google and Google products. So
for me, if I right this minute were to get a new General Motors product, then it probably wouldn't be the craziest shift for me, because I use Android and I have a huge PC setup. I don't really use any Apple products, and so for me, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But I mean, especially, like you and your family are longtime iPhone users, and so and I know, like, your car, like Kia does Apple CarPlay really well, and pretty much every car brand does. If you all of a sudden that got taken away, that would be like, I've got to relearn all this now.
Pretty much, it's going to be a updated user experience. But as long as they can nail that transition from phone to in the vehicle, I think we will adapt very quickly. It's just it'll just be making sure that those glitches aren't there. We can't talk about the features of the present without talking about ADAS. I mean, that's you just can't skip past that, because
never.
The last couple of episodes that we've had with some of the experts, we have gotten to dive into ADAS and the reality of the capabilities of ADAS, and how it's not just about the safety features and the benefits to the driver, but it goes beyond that to the whole ecosystem on the outside of how the driver assistance systems are communicating with the light infrastructures and the streets and the roads and the technology that's running that as well. And so a lot of drivers, I mean, this is split down the middle, to be honest with you. Some of the ADAS features people love, some of them they don't. And I think from like doing some research on ADAS for as long as we've been doing it, one of the most annoying features that most people call annoying is lane keep assist.
Oh yeah.
It is. They notoriously turn that off.
Oh yeah. That one gets brought up a lot.
Yes, it's the, and I understand why. We've talked about that before too, as well as sometimes you'll be driving on a highway and there could be construction going on and you have to go a different route. Your car is trying to take you right when you now have to go left. and it's lane keeping assist that's thinking that it's picking up a false alert. So I do see, some of the features. It'll be interesting, as we talked about previously with the features of the past. Some of them, that the reason why they changed was for the sheer user experience. It's that intuitive user experience. So it'll be interesting to see over the next couple of years how the designers, how the engineers start to improve ADAS based on UX. How do we have less false detections? And I know that there are many innovations that are happening right now in the ADAS world that is improving how ADAS operates. And cameras and sensors are all basically it's improving cameras, it's improving the sensors. That way the systems are not there, they're having less false detections. I think Partha, when we had Partha Goswami on, he mentioned a company that's doing that now, tackling having less false detections because they have better sensors and they have better cameras.
Yeah, that's something that's always advancing, and it's interesting to see, like, compared with, the features past versus features present, that we mentioned, like, cars is going back as far as, like, the 50s and before, when seatbelts were not required, and or most cars didn't have them. When seatbelts became mandatory,
Yep.
there was an outcry about that. Like, what? I've been driving without seatbelts for however many decades. That obviously happened before our time, but like when
Right.
seatbelts were absolutely mandatory, like there was an outcry about that. I've been driving with seatbelts for however many decades. Why don't I have to use a seatbelt now? Or like, and then later on, like, oh, come on, we don't need all this. I've been driving without airbags for my whole life, and nothing's happened.
Exactly.
How similar does that sound to what we've talked about in previous episodes? I've been driving without lane keep assist
That's right.
for so long. I don't need it now. I've been driving without blind spot detection for how long? I don't need it now. And yeah,
It's the
okay.
same.
In most of your drives, maybe not exactly in that moment, but doesn't mean it's not gonna make a world of difference when it does need to.
Yeah.
And
100%.
so that's kind of, honestly, it does feel like history kind of repeating itself, and it's just it's so interesting to see, like, how similar that sounds to things in the past. Now the idea of, like, driving a car without a seatbelt would just be like,
Right.
I'm not touching that. I'm not
No.
touching driving a car without a seatbelt, especially you as a parent. Like, the idea of that, even like with your, like, I know your son is starting, like, driving. It's like
Oh
the
yeah.
idea of him at a young age not having a seatbelt, not having
Absolutely.
an airbag, not having a 3-point safety belt, like, it would be unthinkable.
Mhm.
Like, it
Mhm.
truly, it would be unthinkable. And so,
But you know
um,
what, Luke? I do think that, because I thought about this about ADAS, and like you were just saying with the adoption. I really don't need this. I don't need lane keep assist. I don't need blind spot monitor. I can check that myself. Um, I really sat down and I thought about it. I said, okay, that is very true. You probably won't need ADAS every single drive.
mhm.
But I will say something that was not in the past that is now in the present, and it is our use of mobile phones.
Yeah. Yes,
It is
exactly. That
we
is
are
exactly it.
we are
That is
so
exactly the difference maker.
I'm telling you, that's the biggest difference. We are so distracted on our phones, and people don't want to admit it, but I see it every day. People driving on their phone, and
Yeah.
they truly believe that they have all the brain power, all the willpower, all the control to make sure that they can send that text message and drive and check their blind spot and look in the side. They think they can do it all. We think that we can do it all. And
Mhm.
so I see, because we are in this era of mobile phones, and like Partha said, it is a what did he call it? It is a epidemic
Mhm.
right
Yeah.
now
Yeah, he
with
referred to it as that.
yeah, with the mobile devices, and driving distracted is just as common now and being looked at as like DUI.
Mhm.
I mean, it's just that serious. And so when I sat down and thought about it, I'm like, no, we need ADAS. No, we definitely need ADAS, and we whether you want to admit it or not, whether you want to, and because there is a segment of people that do not use their mobile phones when they're driving, and I do know that. They're
Yeah.
especially like, the older generation, they are not on their phone sending text messages while they're driving. I haven't really seen that.
Yeah.
It's more
And
of,
I say more power to them. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
just that.
It's more of like, millennials, and then you get the generations after that. And so I think that validates the reason for ADAS and why we will continue to need ADAS, because now we have devices becoming more smart. We have AI interacting with us even more. We need some help behind the wheel. And
Yeah.
that's just my take on it.
It's so true, honestly. And you could, that I think would be applicable to, like, in features past, when people would make the argument of like, oh, I don't need, I've been driving for so long without a seatbelt, like, oh, why do I need it now? And
Yep.
it's like, well, yeah, okay, you probably don't need a seatbelt. It's hard for us to think of it like this now because
Right.
we wouldn't dream of it. But yeah, you might not need
Hmm.
a seatbelt every single time you drive. But remember, there was a time when it was never really thought of or considered. What you mentioned, DUI.
Hmm.
It's like it's just a known fact now that a DUI is like it's so well known,
Yep.
like what it does to you, how it changes, the your likeliness of getting an accident, your likeliness of someone perishing in an accident
Yep.
with DUI. Like now it's common knowledge, but back then, like there was a time when no one really thought about that. Like drinking and driving was not really thought of as a bad thing. But
Hmm.
then when it started to be, it's like, okay, you might not need a seatbelt on every drive,
Yep.
but the time that a drunk driver, you know, causes an accident, the time that you don't have a safety belt, then you
Exactly.
probably won't come home to talk about it.
You won't be
And
coming.
and so it's yeah, it's the same thing then, but yeah, the having all the other distractions and so many things happening at the same time that can happen all at the same time because of our connected devices. That is such I think that is such a great take. Um, that's such a great take on how ADAS has a place
A role,
nowadays.
yeah, 100%. And you can take that further now that let's transition into some of the ghosts of the features future.
Mhm.
If you look at where we're headed with the features of the future, you will know why we need ADAS.
Yeah.
You will know why we need driver assistance systems. Okay. And I can start this conversation at features that are being mandated right now because of distracted driving and driving under the influence. And it's biometric monitoring.
Mhm.
So right now, that is mandated on under the infrastructure bill and how they actually develop vehicles. And we talked about this, I think it may have been 2 years ago when that happened.
Mm.
And they started to look at the statistics around DUI and driving distracted. And that's when you started to see engineering start to develop these technologies, these driver assisted systems where it's tracking your eye movement for fatigue.
Yeah.
Or it's tracking the way you're moving your head left and right. Are you attentive or are you not attentive? And
Mhm.
then now this technology is communicating back to you, you need to pull over.
Yeah.
And we're getting as far as now where the technology will pull over for you and stop and slowly stop your vehicle.
Mhm.
And so this really, because there's a common theme or a thread going through all of the past, present, and future, and safety is linking all of these.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
it's safety, because if you look at the statistics of driving fatigue, driving under the influence, and driving distracted, it will blow your mind how
Mhm.
often these accidents are happening and how many people are dying on the roads because of it. And so, um, as we talk about like the ghost of the features of the future, I really see this common thread of safety. It is a little freaky. I'm not going to lie to you to think that a car can know how you feel, is tracking your eye movement and how you move your head. It is a little, I'm not going to lie, it's a little unsettling.
Mhm.
Okay. Just a bit on like, the privacy side of things, because I think about let's just use this as an example. It could be a bad example, but drinking and driving, we know we should not be doing.
Yeah.
But there are people that go out and have one drink and drive
Mhm.
because they're not impaired, right?
Well,
So Well, no, I
Yeah.
understand. They think they're not impaired, right?
Right. They think they're not impaired. Right. It feels like they're not impaired.
Correct. And I can see a driver who maybe they have this biometric technology and it's noticing something's different. I don't know. Maybe your eyes are moving differently because you did have one drink, right? And now that technology is responding to the driver, and driver's like, I've only had one drink. I'm not drunk. I'm not impaired. Turn this thing off. Like, I can see a little bit of a response because the technology
Yeah.
it's like the technology doesn't budge. It's going to do what it's supposed to do, whether whether you think that you are under the influence or not. You know what I'm saying? Because people feel like
Yeah.
they know their limits. Oh, if I have one drink, I can drive. You know what I'm saying? And so it's going to be
Yeah.
interesting.
The tech sees it as very black and white.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. There is no gray area. And with humans, there is a lot of gray area. And that gray area to me is risk. You're risking it.
Yes, it is.
It's risk, but we are risk takers as humans. So that's why I think the whole idea of the way that the engineers are designing some of these technologies, they're trying to make it seem like natural behavior, because that's probably going to be one of the most important things that will help with the adoption of stuff like this. But biometric monitoring, it's here. It's already being developed in vehicles. It's already in vehicles, and you're going to see it become even more advanced 2026 and beyond.
Yeah, definitely. And we've talked a lot about that monitoring already in a lot of the features we've gone over. A lot of the ADAS features, like even, outside of anything like drowsy driving or drunk driving, like even just like ADAS features, that's really what's being used as a way of kind of easing certain cars into being able to have an entirely hands and feet off experience. Like not touching the steering wheel at all while cruising on the freeway, because there's an eye monitor and it has to see, are you looking forward?
Correct.
And if are you either looking forward or doing periodic, looking to see what's in your mirrors. But if it sees you do like this, no, like if it sees you do that, or if you're on your screen for a while on like the center touch screen, then it'll pop up a warning and make a sound that it'll say like inattentive, inattentive driving detected. And I know this because a lot of the cars that I'm around, a lot of time, or in my day to day, have this feature. And I on certain freeways, I've actually tried like side by side to see like, how does this work?
Yeah.
And I've actually had it do the entire hands off and then deliberately did this.
Yeah.
To where I don't know if you can hear me. I did this to where I like my eyes couldn't be seen, but I basically did this. Where like I could barely see right here. So that if something happened, I would still be able to see it happen. I'm not like looking away completely, but I tried doing this to where clearly my eye was not as visible, and it said inattentive driving, and then as soon as I did that, then it went away. And so that's already present. But when you talk about it being more involved, that's that's what it will be, and it will be used to monitor more things.
Exactly.
Self-drive fully. So, and this is obviously future, but like fully self-driving cars that you don't even have to touch anything except the seat you sit in. That fully just take you anywhere by itself. It could probably do a biometric monitoring to see, like it could do a biometric monitoring to see, like how much, like how, would it advise like a nap? Yeah,
would it collect your heart rate?
Yeah, would it advise a nap before you get to where you need to go?
Yes, I mean it's getting there, but also with this biometric and then having us like driving and constantly looking forward, it's preparing us for the augmented reality windshields.
Yeah,
right.
So when we already see slivers of that in our Ghost of Features present, we have head-up displays.
You have
it's already there a little bit.
It's already there. So, forget looking at the screen down. They want us looking forward. They want, and they're planning to put it all on the windshield for you so that you can see. And it's I actually drove in a car that had one of these features, and I could see my speed limit on the windshield.
Oh yeah, that's the most common thing.
Yeah, it was very small, but at first it was a little bit distracting because I wasn't used to it. But then I was like, oh, but it really is nice to have my speed like right here at eye level, where I just don't have to look just slightly down, obviously right there. You know, in that small panel. But I got used to it after a while. But the features of the future, listen, we are headed to some very unique experiences in cars, and augmented reality windshields is very, very, I think it's something I've seen in movies. You know, I'm being reminded right now of what is that superhero character?
Iron Man, probably.
Yes, where he slides, he's in his house and he pulls up.
Yeah, that's Iron Man.
Yeah, pulls up the thing and it's just sliding across. And I'm like, that's so cool. But to think like, oh, that might be in a car, like that is insane, Luke.
Yeah, one of the big things that I've seen talked about with a potential way forward for augmented reality windshields is having the entire Apple CarPlay or Android Auto display up there.
Wow.
So like a windshield projected Apple CarPlay or Android Auto.
Wow.
And I'm sure it would probably be a slightly, the UI would be slightly altered, but honestly, that I could see a use case for that. I could really see a use case for that. A true augmented reality windscreen that to where you can't see past it. That's obviously way in the future of like a completely self-driving car that you don't have any involvement in its driving. But you know, for the foreseeable future where we have all or any or even a little amount of involvement in the driving, augmented reality or AR windscreens is something that is clearly being progressed towards, because we've had head-up displays for head-up displays started appearing in cars in early 2000s, or some of my the earliest ones I can remember.
They're slowly introducing the features to get us where they're trying to get us to, and technology is a big part of that. I kind of gave my take on it being a little cringy, having some features that are, you know, watching you and monitoring you. But Luke, I want to know your opinion. So looking at this biometric future where cars are tracking your eye movement and even your heart rate, Luke. Okay. I'm done. So that means, yes, that's insane. But I understand there's a lot of actual use cases for that. People that are driving with certain conditions, they can use and know, like if you're going to have a heart attack or something like that. So I understand where they're going with that. But looking at that, do you feel like it's a little too much, or where do you draw the line when we're talking about these kinds of features that are monitoring you?
So I would say, how much is too much? I would say, well, I think the obvious, that's part of the question is very subjective. Different people have different views on it, and which is like why you said, in my opinion, like I get it, but for my opinion, I would say, I think the one subjective way to answer this is if it becomes, if somehow it notifies you in a way that's distracting while you're driving, that's just a no, right? Until we have a car that literally does not need you to do anything for it to transport you. If it is notifying you about stuff that is distracting while you're driving, then that I think is that I think can pretty objectively be said is not a good idea. But again, that would come down to actually more the user experience of notifications more so than just the presence of features. But I'm just I guess that's my way of kind of working through the answer. But I would say health-wise, for health and safety, I don't think it's out of place to have these. There are cars already that can track heart rate or heart inconsistencies, and eye tracking is very, very common. newer BMW's systems actually have, in addition to the eye tracker, a lot of them actually have other little sensors. You can't see them; they're completely hidden within the black panel that is the
Right.
gauge cluster screen. But and as is the eye tracking camera, but they also have sensors on the sides of the eye tracker that are actually looking for the shape of hands on the steering wheel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there are some cars where I've tried this also. If you look straight ahead and you're being attentive, but if your hands are off the wheel, it'll notify you place your hands on the wheel, because
Mm-hmm.
and if you put your hands there close to the wheel but don't actually touch it, it goes away.
Yep.
So there, yeah, these sensors are common, and I think for safety like that, then I think that's fine. I would welcome, um, I would welcome the presence of sensors like that that can assist with ADAS as long as it's in a meaningful way. Um, there is obviously an entire, side of the conversation, which is the privacy
Oh
and
yeah.
data
Yep.
collecting thing. We were very fortunate several episodes ago to have a real expert in the field. Whose name was it was Debbie Reynolds, right?
That's right.
And
The
she,
data diva.
yeah, exactly, and she was a real big expert in the field of cybersecurity, and so
Mm-hmm.
we talked with her a lot about that. But I guess for more on that side, we have an entire episode dedicated to that. So
Exactly.
without getting too much into that part of it, I think it's good to have these as long as they impact safety in a meaningful way. I do think I would draw the line somewhere though.
Oh yeah.
And
I
this so
absolutely draw the line as well.
and here's where I would draw the line. If and this would be, again, having it come away from the safety aspect, but this actually ties into um another issue that's being talked about in another industry that's equally near and dear to me, which is actually the gaming industry, which
Mm-hmm.
is that if the data collected from these sensors, how is a person looking, how are they feeling, how things like that can be used for targeted advertisements in the
Mm.
car.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Um,
That's come. Oh yeah. That's a whole nother conversation.
I mean, imagine like when you start up your car, there's like a little ad that plays
Oh
before your
yes.
actual infotainment system comes up. Like,
Oh yes.
again, it's easy to think now, oh, how could they do that to us? Well, pretty easily actually.
Yes.
Um, a lot of, I mean, there's always new space to try and for people to try and cram advertisements into something, and I have to imagine there's people out there who's frankly whose jobs are to look at an industry, look at a market, look at a demographic, whatever the case may be, and their entire job is how can we market to these people further?
Yep.
There are people who spend their careers doing that, and I have to imagine there are people out there that are could be thinking, if we could actually know
Mm-hmm.
where someone's looking, how they're looking, how their literal body is responding in the car, imagine how curtailed our advertisements could be.
Oh yeah. I
Um,
mean, that's what it's all about, to be honest.
th-
That's
that that I would say is absolutely where I would draw the line. If it's to incorporate any kind of advertisements into a car's infotainment system, whether it's the OEM
right.
infotainment or Apple CarPlay or Android Auto.
Yeah.
If that were to become commonplace, I would frankly then I would seek out a car that had those 3 keys and crank windows if it meant I could get away from that.
No, I understand. I completely. Yeah, we're gonna have to do an episode on that, because there's a lot going on in that, in the whole infotainment, even where you see Google coming in right now. There's a whole play with advertising in the car. There's a play for that, and I actually seen some recent feedback from a few people on some social media platforms that were voicing their opinions about that. They will go back to their older vehicle if they
Mhm.
start to have to experience that. So no, I think that's a great place to draw the line.
Yeah,
To be honest.
I would say it, and I understand that saying this is kind of antithetical a little bit um, and frankly, it's a little bit antithetical to features first, and especially like, your vision of how we, and your vision of how we can help other people in the community. But I truly, if it's if any of the kind of advancements that we talk about lead to a way that they can put targeted advertisements in a car's system, again, whether it's OEM or Apple CarPlay or Android Auto,
Mhm.
then I know it's not what we really advise, but I would brave a car. I would brave a car with no ADAS and I would brave a car with no ADAS and crank windows if it meant I wouldn't be targeted that way. That's I mean,
Yeah.
I'll say that on the Features Talk podcast. That's
Oh
that
yeah,
for me,
I think
that for me is
everybody.
that for me is a big that for me would be my line in the sand.
Oh yeah, and everybody has one. Everybody has a line in the sand, and that's the beautiful thing about what we're doing here is everything we do here, safety is threaded through all of that. What does ads have to do with safety? Nothing. So
Yeah,
that's the whole entertainment side of the OEMs and the automotive industry and the data collection that I don't think I think that's probably why we haven't had an episode about it, is because it's not necessarily to our brand to talk about that kind of stuff. But I do think that you're gonna have to draw the line somewhere. We're talking about the features of the future. And we're talking about some outlandish things and experiences that are going to come to you in your vehicle. And so the cool thing about it is you have the choice to say yay or nay, to say no or yes. And so everybody has a line in the sand that they will draw, especially as we continue to transition into this connected world.
exactly.
I mean, it is a connected world, and I know a whole generation that doesn't even want a cell phone. So it's I think everybody has that, line in the sand where they draw. And I think you have valid points in what you said. And I think we should, as we always tell to the listeners, pay attention to what's going on. Go back and listen to the privacy episode with Debbie, the data diva, Debbie, and listen to what she said about what you should be doing to know where your data is being collected, who's using it, and what they're doing with it. So this is all important. That way you won't step yourself into a situation where you do have a vehicle that now has ads that you have to deal with that kind of experience. So I think your line in the sand is probably a line in the sand for a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, it could be. And it's important to remember, like we talked about, as consumers, we have an enormous amount of power to direct what features come and what we don't, because the brands, no matter how big they are, they will go where the money is. And if something like that creeps in and suddenly the product stops getting bought, it will happen. And and honestly, the reason I bring this up is that we actually like to incorporate a lot of this in our Features Talk podcast, which is that we're always engaging with the community and finding, what do people think? What are people saying about the topics that we talk about? And that's why, in the same way that, customers can influence what features make it into, what usually convenience features make it into cars or don't.
Yep.
We have a feature, we have a segment called Listener Lane, of course. And like I always said, it's great to engage with our community, but we're doing a little bit of a different spin on Listener Lane this week. Normally we look for like questions. We encourage people, ask us questions and we'll answer them on the podcast about topics. But this time for our holiday special, we're kind of seeing, we're basically asking people, like, give us your takes, give us your takes and your opinions, and we'll see, and let's see what people are saying about it. And so one of the ones we basically put out, and it was basically we asked a question and are looking for the user's response now. So it's we're kind of flipping it now. Instead of them asking us the questions, we asked the questions this time. And we said, if you could bring back one Ghost of Features Past and add it to a brand new 2025 and I guess also 2026 vehicle at the time of recording, what would it be and why? And we had a great response from Mark T, who says, bring back full-size spare tires. The tire in these quote unquote tire inflator kits are we said these tire inflator kits are useless when you have a real blowout on a holiday trip.
So true.
Yeah, that's something I get asked about a lot, is the presence of a spare. And a couple of things have and we've mentioned this on a couple episodes before. It's full-size spare tires are kind of towing this line between past and present, where there's a lot of cars that still have them. You typically find them in full-size trucks and bigger SUVs, especially like work vehicles will sometimes have obviously multiple spares on them. But no, there's a lot of consumer vehicles that have yeah, like Mark T says, kind of gone away from the spare. And there's been a couple reasons for that. One is it's what the automakers will tell you, and which is actually true, is it helps with fuel efficiency.
Yep.
You know, even if not a night and day difference, you are subtracting weight from the car, which does make it a little more fuel efficient in the long term.
Mm-hmm.
And you're adding more storage space in the back, which is absolutely true.
Right.
It gives you a larger floor to put a cargo floor to put stuff in when you don't have a spare taking up that space. That is all absolutely true. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what what they won't tell you is that it saves them money. It saves them money on production because
Oh,
they're just not including as many parts.
yeah.
Um, but that yeah. Now, one thing that we wanted to share, Mark T, in response to your take on this. So, Consumer Reports recently highlighted that over 60% of new cars now come without a spare. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
absolutely in line with what he says, is that
Yep.
it's become less common. And again, most consumers have demonstrated that they're okay with that. But that I think I would agree. I think if someone were to ask me what's one I would bring back, I think having a I think at least a spare of some kind. Like my car has a smaller kind of a
Yeah.
donut tire, they call them. But I think a full size spare would be would not be would not be a bad idea. But the other way that this is kind of a reap what we sow situation, is that
Exactly.
one thing that consumers have valued is larger wheel sizes
Mm.
for
Oh,
style.
yeah. That's true.
For style and aesthetics, consumers value larger wheel styles, right?
Very true.
And you can get 20-inch wheels now on a Honda Civic.
Yes. It looks so weird.
You can get 20-inch wheels on a Honda Civic now,
Oh,
which is famously a very small car. But again, consumers value that. And
yeah.
guess where there's room to put a fifth 20-inch wheel on a Honda Civic? Nowhere.
Nowhere.
And so again, consumers have demonstrated over and over again that they value style and size of the wheels. And so
Yeah.
of course on SUVs, you think, oh, we'll get a bigger car. Well, fine, but SUVs now, the new BMW iX is offered with a 23-inch wheel.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that's less common, but some SUVs have 22, 23-inch wheels. So even they then don't have room for a full size one of those. So
They don't. They don't. But you
I
know what
think
I will say?
yeah,
I would love to have a spare tire and not be stuck on the side of the road. If
yes,
waiting for AAA to come whenever they can. You know, AAA is actually really good. I'm a customer of AAA, but just
same here.
yeah, just the whole experience of having to sit on the side of the road. I get it. Put the donut on there, and then you can get to the tire shop and get you a new one. So I agree with you, Mark. It would be nice to have a little small spare tire back there, even if it's a donut.
Yeah, and Mark T brings up specifically a full size spare.
Yeah.
That obviously would also be ideal. There's one potential downside of that is if it's on a larger vehicle, that is an
Mm.
incredibly heavy object.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
A
I
full,
don't
a
need a full
truly
size. I just need a donut.
right, yeah, exactly, yeah. It's and a donut, I honestly would be okay with that. Just something
Yeah.
temporary to get me off the side of the road, because that's a real safety concern. Being on the side of the
Exactly.
freeway, that's not where
Yeah.
you want to be.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
when Mark T specifically brings up a full size spare, you really only find those now on basically the two that come to mind are the Jeep Wrangler. Well,
Mhm.
three actually: the Jeep Wrangler, the Ford Bronco, and the Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon, because they have that enormous spare mounted on the back of the car.
Yes.
So
Yes, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think we have one other
mm,
top response to our survey as well. That was from Sarah J.
okay.
She said, please bring back physical. Oh, yeah, we talked about this physical climate control knob. I don't want to navigate 3 sub menus just to turn on my seat
Oh
heater.
my gosh. Hey, Sarah J, louder for people in the back.
Thank you,
I think
Sarah J.
I think we find ourselves in pretty unanimous agreement on that.
Okay, you know what? And to we have some data on that just to even bring it back to what we're talking about with the safety.
Mm,
Recently, data shows massive dissatisfaction, which we talked about, with touchscreen overload. And so I
right.
mentioned this earlier in the episode. The Euro NCAP, which is a safety rating agency, is moving to penalize cars that rely solely on touchscreens for basic functions starting in 2026. So
Mm,
drivers want the muscle memory of the past back. They want it. They want the muscle memory. They want it back. So it is nice to see that Safety, after all of the features we talked about today, the common thread through each past, present, and future was safety. It was safety. And so I think that will continue to be the message. I think Partha, when he was on last, he said it best. He said, my definition of safe driving is it's not just the passenger, it's not just the driver, it's the whole ecosystem, as everybody's safe. Right. Pedestrians are safe.
It's everyone.
It's
everyone around.
It's
even pedestrians, people who aren't in cars, they're part of it too.
Exactly. And the technology that you see being developed, you have pedestrian detection. And so this theme of safety is really weaved through the whole entire thing. And I think that's really cool because that's what it's all about. And that's just what it's really all about. This has been fun, Luke. This has been fun.
It has been.
I think I walked away knowing some things I didn't know about it, especially when you're talking about the 1930, the heads up. I had no idea about that. So that was a really cool tip. I hope that you guys enjoyed spending some time with us over your holiday weekend. And whether you are the one that misses the vent windows or you're on the other side and you can't wait for the AR windshields, one thing is clear. The goal is always a safer, better drive. And so as you are traveling to see your family this season, remember that the best safety feature in any car, this is in Luke's words, past, present, or future, is an engaged driver. You are the safest feature. Don't forget to subscribe. Stay tuned as we are continuing to share our top 2025 moments on the FeaturesTalk podcast. Make sure you're tuning into those because we are dropping some gems if you have missed some of our past episodes. And we want you to make sure that you drive safe, you buckle up, and happy holidays from Features First Auto. And we will see you all on our next episode. Drive safe.
Drive safe.